friends, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pixel Crashers podcast where we discuss our thoughts on gaming news. I am Angelus de Mortiel, together with Kev the Gamer. Oh yeah, you can't hear him because I didn't want to unmute him. You know.
I'd like to dedicate this episode to all the souls I lost this week.
Yeah.
It was I lost a lot.
So for anybody wondering, is Kev any good at Dark Souls? He actually is. He's just trying to make it sound like he's not.
I'm okay.
Anyway, Major Stupidity is also here.
What's up?
Who also might have been playing that Dark Souls game.
Except I'm actually good at it.
Ouch.
Harsh.
And Death Shroud 09 is also here.
Yeah, I have not been playing Dark Souls yet.
Probably
Unfortunately.
Probably for the best.
The port's not that well optimized, so yeah. The micro stutters in crashing. Crashing's kind of gone, but it micro stutters everywhere.
I don't have that problem. Don't have that problem at all.
Uh-huh.
It didn't happen to me, so it must not be a problem.
Yeah. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying I didn't have that problem.
Yeah, it's been very much randomly, some people have a bunch of issues and then some people don't.
I've heard of issues with AMD CPUs. I don't know how true that is, but that could be a potential issue too.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's why I said it, because you're on the 4300.
I think all my problems are probably my CPU.
Yeah.
I'm very...
Well, I still think that 760 is getting long in tube too. Like, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, I would think when the next set of cards come out, it probably might be time for you to upgrade that graphics card.
Well, I mean,
Maybe.
It is
generally used more indeed, though.
Yeah,
before the graphics card. It
is generally recommended to at least wait 2 generations before you start changing your graphics cards. And this whole podcast is going to be me fighting with Skype, trying to automatically adjust my mic volume, even though I have the setting turned off. But no, honestly, 760 is still a pretty decent card. Can handle most games.
Which is why I go into Dark Souls 3 and most of my settings are on low with maybe a couple on medium, and I'm constantly sitting at 45 to 50 frames per second at best. Sometimes dropping low.
That's why I was saying it's probably time to look at it.
No, I think it's their optimization issues.
It's got to be. Yeah, because like I said, with there's got to be a lot of games he's still maxing out. So I think it's, when you've got a 970, it's hard to...
The game looks better than Dark Souls 2, and it doesn't look ugly, but it's not even that great of a looking game either.
I disagree. I think, and maybe I've played a 1440 medium, so...
The artistic design, is incredible, but I'm just saying, the actual graphical fidelity, it's not bad, but I don't think it's amazing either. It's
It's one of those games like Gears. You don't want Gears to be too pretty. And that's how I feel about Dark Souls. Part of the aesthetic...
There's still a lot of random texture work that's really still looking...
Yeah, but that's kind of what I'm getting at. And that's part of the aesthetic. At least that's how I look at it with Dark Souls. Gears of War is kind of like that too. I don't know if it doesn't
look that great. I expect performance to be better, especially since my settings are on low. Everything's on low or medium.
Fair enough.
And it runs my PC hot too.
That's an AMD thing.
Yeah, I'm not surprised that it is.
Hashtag let's get Joe ascended.
Well,
again.
The thing is that, and this is something that may change in the future, but that was something that AMD was known for. Now, in the future, they claim that their newest CPUs and whatnot are going to be better for heat and efficiency. But
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's entirely possible. It took them, 20, 30 years to, make this new iteration. I only half joke about that. It hasn't been quite that long, but it might as well have been that long in the tech world. Anyway, but I digress. This is the part where Kev talks about all of the games he's been playing, specifically a couple of betas.
Actually, this is the part where we talked about when we acknowledged Travis's existence.
Yeah, right.
I
mostly
actually
now.
already did introduce him.
Oh, you did? And then I don't think any of us caught that, bro. It's all good.
I said, and Death Stranding
I
9's also here.
I was only like 15%, 10 to 15% here anyways, so now I'm like 75.
He's distracted. He got lady friends. He got a lady friend over.
She just left, so.
He gave her the boot. He said, "Sorry, honey, doing the podcast. Get."
She's going to go in the other room and be watching the podcast, so he's going to carefully not comment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I have with the podcast. She's gonna come in and kick him in the balls.
Yeah. In any case, though, Kev betas.
I played a lot of them this weekend because I was flooding in games this weekend. So, of course, the Doom Open Beta. I played about another hour of that. I don't want to play too much of it because I'm actually looking forward to the game. So I might have played maybe 4 hours of it overall. And that's
I'm not, honestly...
I know you're not interested in Doom.
No. The single player of Doom, very much. That multiplayer fucking sucks. It is like it's like you took Unreal Tournament and made it less fun. Like
maybe because I wasn't heavy in the Unreal Tournament. But
it has a lot of the elements, like the kind of disembodied announcer that they sort of took to Halo, but not nearly as much. Like Unreal Tournament had the over-the-top, cheesy announcer voice, like, mega kill. That all came from Unreal Tournament, and they have
every game's announcer needs to just have the guy who did the announcing for Darkest Dungeon in it now. Let's have him do all the narration for every game now.
But the main thing though is that like the contact of everything, like the hit detection, the movement, all of that, I kind of felt like it was trying to be Unreal Tournament and wasn't as good. And it's like Unreal Tournament at this point is like 15 years old, so that's kind of saying something.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I wasn't comparing it to anything else. Mm-hmm. I just played it and had fun with it.
Well, no, that was just the initial feeling that I got hopping in there. That and the matchmaking there absolutely sucks. I had to play 3 matches before I actually got into a match with people that weren't ridiculously over-leveled for me.
Damn, yeah, I didn't have that issue.
Like, the first 2 matches I played, I was in there just with people that were, like, level 20 and up. Nothing but level 20 and up. And, like, literally... all the people in there already knew the maps. I had no clue about them, so like I run around every corner, shot instantly. Like literally, there was one point in time where I would spawn, take 3 steps, get sniped on this one map, and I'm like,
that's the spawn system. The spawn system in this game is a bit fucked up. Like I killed people in the closed beta. A guy was like spawning. He spawned like right in the scope of my shotgun. There was nothing he could do.
Yeah, I
took the kill.
Yeah, you can't really do much, and I can't fault players for that. That's not the player's fault in any way.
That's a design flaw. Totally a thing.
And that's where I'm like, I'm not blaming other players for a noob getting thrown into their game, probably dragging down their team and whatnot. By the third one, I had a bit better grasp of things, and that's where I kind of started to notice, like, some of the other flaws going on there. Like, wow, the hit detection on this game is really poor. Like, I'm hitting people and I'm seeing the numbers fly up, but I don't really feel like I'm hitting them. Like, I kind of...
I didn't get that feeling at all. My biggest problem with it, like I said, the spawns and the ping. The ping is out of control. Mm-hmm. Like, I can get some games where I get a really good ping. There are games where I'm getting like 170. Oh, excuse me. So it really just depended on what game I was in.
Yeah, that's not good. But what about Overwatch?
I really enjoyed Overwatch. It reminds me, like, I remember we were talking about this before the show, and I'm going to talk about Battleborn also. I didn't like Battleborn very much.
Yeah, we'll get
Battleborn felt like a MOBA and a first-person shooter.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
I didn't like that. I'm starting to realize that maybe I just don't like MOBAs that much.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I tried so many of them, and none of them really stuck with me. Overwatch, however, felt like Team Fortress, very much so, but I like the characters actually more in Overwatch. It felt very much so like, or even like Rush in Battlefield, which I really like Rush. So, yeah, I'm probably going to hop on Overwatch, a game that I wasn't sure about at first. So I'm probably going to hop on that.
I can see that.
I've seen enough footage of Overwatch that I'm pretty confident that it's going to be a decent success.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just talk about how incredibly awesome the trailers are they've made for them so far too?
It looks like a Pixar film. Like, I'm not entirely sure if I'm watching a movie or not.
Blizzard, just turn these into movies. Like, just... Oh my god.
They will.
Keep making these.
I'm pretty sure they will. I mean, they're coming out with Warcraft movies right now, so...
No, they don't even have to do full movies. I just want to see more of these. Like, just keep making these little mini episodes.
People have been saying that they need to make movies off of, like, in general, a lot of the universe characters. Not just Overwatch, but all of them.
I feel like if they go full on in the movies, though, it could mess with it. I'd say just keep making, like, these, like, 10-minute episodes and just every once in a while release them.
I wish I could share the link. I wish I remember where the link was. I saw this amazing cosplay for Tracer. It was a Korean girl.
Already.
Just amazing.
Was she doing the pose that they got rid of?
That one.
Did you see the the ass one?
Yeah.
No, she wasn't doing that one. No, she did the one where she was falling back with the guns. She had this guy dressed in all black, and they kind of used him like a green screen.
Yep.
Which was kind of awesome. But no, she pulled it off really well.
Yep.
Like,
go ahead.
I was really impressed. I was really impressed with how well she did.
Yeah, there's there's been like some people are like, oh yeah, the controversy over the butt pose, like that's Blizzard trying to drum up more, popularity for the game. I'm like, no, you don't realize that Blizzard doesn't need that.
I don't think people don't realize that Blizzard has its own like I don't want to call them a set of fanboys, so I'm just going to call them a set of fans.
They are
like
fanboys.
Hardcore dedicated fans. Yeah, I mean Valve has it too, but it's no different than really any other company. We talk about people saying like Call of Duty.
I would compare Blizzard fanboys to similar to Nintendo fanboys.
Blizzard, yeah, they have some really fucking loyal fans.
Yeah, it's not as much
even
as
their
Steam,
fans who criticize them still give them a lot of benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
I give
it feels like Nintendo.
I give Blizzard a lot of the benefits. Actually, I think Sony fanboys are probably worse than Nintendo fanboys.
No. We're not talking about how devoted they are. It's the kind of the attitude, the feeling you get from those people where
they're very long term. Like a lot of their strongest fans are ones who have been with them for literally decades.
Right.
Yeah.
Like these are the people who played Diablo and Diablo 2 and StarCraft. The original StarCraft.
Something that really makes me happy about Blizzard that, and hopefully with the success of Overwatch, is that I'm hoping like large companies are going to take more risks on like new IP, because Blizzard has been doing new stuff.
Yeah, but let's be honest, Overwatch is not a huge risk. Team Fortress has largely had no competition to it, which is kind of a prime market for attack. And it's already proven to be a lucrative market at that. So,
and it's like other than Overwatch, it's like they have Hearthstone. It's a card game based on Warcraft.
They literally cover every
popular games of all time.
Yeah, well,
I love Hearthstone and I don't care about Warcraft, but
No, they literally cover every damn genre in their lineup.
That's more risk than another.
It was
Diablo.
risky doing the card game. It was, but it panned out really well.
Even Overwatch, I feel like having all this new art, and it might be, going over this previously done formula. But then again, it's just kind of like there's eventually in gaming there's no. No new stories after Shakespeare or whatever kind of thing, right?
Well, yes. Nothing is original anymore.
Right.
I feel I feel like it's a bigger risk to do something like Overwatch than to just throw out another StarCraft or another Diablo or whatever.
And I mean, they could have easily done a game like Overwatch, like this MOBA shooter, and they could have set it in like the StarCraft universe,
right?
And fans would have eaten it up. It's nice that they were like, you know what, we're going to make a new lore, a new universe based on this.
Really, it's interesting. We were talking about games being safe. Taking it back to Doom. Do you think maybe that's part of the problem with a lot of people having with Doom? Because I don't know. I've seen the Steam surveys or Steam reviews or whatever. They are slamming this beta.
Yeah, the thing is that Doom has this is the concern, and what I've noticed is that so you've got these developers that are trying to play off of nostalgia, right? They're trying to go back and rekindle the old fire for those old classics like Doom, right? Doom
while modernizing it.
Yeah, modernizing it,
which is what Doom 3 basically was.
Well, and what was the reviews for Doom 3?
Doom 3 was pretty good.
Most people said Doom 3 was trash.
Yeah, so
really? I like Doom 3.
Yeah, no, Doom 3 got a lot of bad reviews. It was not considered to be a critical success, although the sales may have been good enough where they didn't care. Whatever.
It might have been like initial, but like if you look at long term, a lot of people have accepted that it's like Doom 3 was pretty alright. Like it had a lot of issues and a lot of like weird like decisions. But overall I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah. The thing about like the playing off of nostalgia is that we've like it's difficult because we've seen this played out before, right? Like we've seen this with Duke Nukem, and
it did not go well.
Like, Duke Nukem got destroyed.
That game was so bad.
Like it's
but then there's games that do well off of their nostalgia too. Look at Wolfenstein: The New Order.
Yeah, that
amazing game. One of my favorite games that's come out in the last few years.
Well, and let's throw out something though.
It's something that's really easy to mess up. It's really, really, really easy to mess it up.
They think that
all of them were.
They a lot of times I think the developers in their initial kind of conceptualizing a new game to put out, they think on paper it sounds easy because we've already done this before, right? We've already made this game before. This is easy. We already know the story and the lore and all this stuff. Don't have to develop a whole lot. The problem is like you said, the bar is exceptionally high. In order to play to that nostalgia, you're drawing in the crowds that are wanting to repeat that experience they had, 10, 15 years ago, like Doom. Everybody in Doom wants that BFG 2000. It's got to be in the game. Like you're restricted on that. If you don't have the BFG 9000 in there, people are going to slam the hell out of the game just for this little tiny thing. The gun that you never use, but it's a staple of the Doom universe because of the original Doom game and from there on. But like I said, I have hopes for the single player game. All the footage I've seen so far of it look damn good. It looks amazing. Like I said, multiplayer. I played the living hell out of Unreal Tournament. That's how I ended up getting into Halo MLG stuff in there, was because of Unreal Tournament. That competitive nature, the grandiose announcer saying like, blah 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 has spawned in the mission. It was just a great experience.
So
Doom tried to do that and failed, from what it seems like.
So what I want to ask you is, like, I can't remember, did any of the other Dooms have multiplayer experiences?
No,
not heavy.
So
Doom 3 had it. I think Doom 2 had it too.
Doom 2 had co-op.
Yeah, it had co-op, but not PvP.
Like,
I think Doom 3 had. I know Doom 3 had PvP.
Was this as a Doom player, like, you're not really gonna be interested too much in a multiplayer component? Like, I'm really kind of confounded, and it seems kind of like a boardroom type decision, you have to have multiplayer. Like that's the shooting community these days. Hell, I've been on communities where people say all the time, if a game doesn't have multiplayer, I'm not buying it. Even if the game doesn't need multiplayer. I've seen people who say that. As I said, from my position, I see no reason why the new Doom game should have had any resources spent on a multiplayer. Like, I don't see any reason for it.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if they'd done it correctly and they actually put focus into making it different. Problem is that they were kind of like, we'll just take the same tried and true formula.
Going back to what Morty was saying before, you're trying to make this game and play off of nostalgia. Mm-hmm. If you are trying to spend resources on a multiplayer that was not existent in the experience that you were trying to reclaim for the audience, in my opinion, you're just wasting resources. Yes, it can be a fluke and it can be a success like Mass Effect 3 multiplayer was, but we've seen far more failures of tacked-on multiplayer than we have successes.
I think that's why I feel like they could have, if they put effort into it and they done something like, you know what I would have liked to see? Some more asymmetrical gameplay modes.
Yeah, I think especially when you have the demon runes, that would have been a good idea. But something to talk about too with Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, I don't actually think that was tacked on. I think that they took something that was basic, but the depth from that multiplayer came from the characters.
I'm 99.
So many different characters.
I'm 90. It might not have been tacked on, but I'm 99% sure like their expectations for that were much lower than what they got.
Oh yeah, I think so too.
And Mass Effect.
And then when they came back with Dragon Age, they thought it was going to be Mass Effect again, and it wasn't.
Mass Effect 3 multiplayer could have easily been a flop. Like, there's some bad parts to it, and like one or two things they could have messed up on, and like it wouldn't have taken off like it had before, right? Like, a little bit less options in the play, in the characters and the variety. Just a little bit more. Grind and it could have failed so easily. It could have failed so easily, but it didn't. And while it might not have been tacked on, I don't think that as much effort was put into it as comparatively to its success.
Oh yeah, I think when you look at Mass Effect, marginally it was tacked on. When you look at the amount of effort put into the story of the game versus the multiplayer. The multiplayer, let's be honest, had a lot of shortcuts, and they relied on after-the-fact DLC to really flesh it out. Because when it first launched, you had the choice of, what was it, 6 character types technically? One of each gender.
I'm going to go check on why my dogs are barking. Give me just a moment.
No problem.
No, you had. I remember there were a lot more than just 6. Yeah, you had 2 of each gender on each class, but then you had some of the aliens too.
Not yet. The first DLC at launch, you had only the vanilla human kits. Like
no. You still had like the Asari, and I remember in the beta, that's when I fell in love with the Quarian engineer.
You still had Asari, and you had the Krogans, and Krogan.
Okay.
Like, there was some decent like character. The maps were kind of wanting a little bit, like
the map.
But they did, after they noticed the initial success, they really jumped on it and pumped out a decent amount of content. Some of it better than others, but they still once they noticed that this people like this formula, they put into it what they could. I still think that because of their actions afterwards, the actions, like listening to the devs and looking at what they put out, you can tell they were not prepared for this. They simply weren't. Like Mass Effect 3 multiplayer could have gone on for probably, a decent amount longer than it did if it had been planned that it was going to be this successful.
Oh yeah, they could have supported that game for... Well, now, what is it, 2016, and they stopped support for it in 2013, right? Or 2014, whenever. They could have supported it for 3 more years and still saw some kind of financial boon from it, from the microtransactions.
Yep, sure could have.
And honestly, like that's something that as a... as a business, if I was running a business, I would like take a step back and like realize how much, of a success this was compared to the amount of effort put in, and see this simple formula. I think they went wrong in Andromeda in that they tried to like emulate it, but they didn't look at the reasons why it was successful. And
right, exactly. That's a huge one, and that's the one we've talked about here before. Actually, I think before you got on the show, we talked about that a few times. They tried to copy. I'm going to actually quote Joe here. They tried to copy Mass Effect wholesale from Dragon Age Inquisition, and they didn't understand why people liked it in the first place.
Yeah, and that's exactly it. That's the way I kind of see it. Is there was so many things that Dragon Age Inquisition, you could tell that they were literally trying to copy the success and translate it into the Dragon Age type play style, and they didn't get what made it popular to begin with. I think it was just a random comedy of errors that led to Mass Effect multiplayer being so successful. I don't think they really know what made it successful. They didn't have a crafted formula. They just kind of said, "Hey, let's try this out. Why not? We'll go for it."
It all just happened to fall into place.
Yeah, exactly.
It takes somebody to step back and really analyze, like, why was this a success?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Because to me, it was because of the gameplay variety.
Yeah,
well, and that's what Dragon Age didn't have.
It's the complexity. I feel like
It's also the variety of. I feel like one big thing that Dragon Age doesn't have is loot variety. Like Mass Effect, it's like you unlock a weapon. A weapon is going to be useful. And if you unlock another weapon, you're going to upgrade your weapon. Each weapon plays differently. Dragon Age, if you're a dwarf, like the Legionnaire, the dwarf, it's like your weapon, like, oh, you got a new axe and shield. It's like, it's still a fucking axe. It's still a fucking shield. You're still running up to enemies and just, and then using your 4 skills.
The comedy of
it. I mean, even think about it, something like Dark Souls. We played Dark Souls this week. Depending on the kind of sword rapier is a rapier, but the combination with your character class and everything makes it play so much differently, and the way you build your character and everything with the different powers and
like Dark Souls is an example of how you do weapon variety.
Yeah,
right. If they would have taken like that kind of like the way that kind of combat and put that into Dragon Age, it probably would have been a lot more.
So here's the thing. So first of all, I'll note that it's kind of like a strange coincidence that we're actually talking about Dragon Age on the podcast with one of the guys that I played Dragon Age a lot with is actually in the chat right now. So yes, as Botsu's saying in the chat right now, yes, the amount of content there was definitely one of the flaws to it, because after a while you can only run the same map so many damn times.
Yes, the maps are totally what got me out of the game.
Yeah,
I got tired of playing the same 3 maps.
Well,
and now there's only like 5-6 maps now.
I feel like there was a lot more attention to detail in the Mass Effect maps. Like there were limited Mass Effect maps, but there was so much more.
There's like 3 times.
There's like 8 of them.
There's 3 times more.
Probably added to that as well. Like the cover shooting system allows for more tactical experience, and that leads to a more cohesive experience with the other players.
I think also a big issue is Mass Effect, even in the single player, it's like, yes, you have your 2 squad mates, but the gameplay is you controlling Shepard. It's based around you controlling this one character. Dragon Age is a game designed around controlling a party. You bring it into multiplayer, and suddenly it's like, well, that whole party you had, you're now with one character.
Well,
he has a super limited skill set, so there's only so much you can do.
Okay, devil's advocate here for a moment. In Mass Effect, you're designed around controlling Shepard, but have the option to control the party, even on Xbox to the point where the Kinect had voice commands you could shout out.
Yeah, but you didn't actually play as Dragon Age. You actually controlled each other.
The control was very limited.
Hold on. Yes, it was limited. In Dragon Age, I can and be successful at playing just as the Inquisitor and opting to very limitedly control my team as well and have a great experience. Now, I personally love the whole tactical thing. That's why I love Dragon Age Origins. I like positioning and telling people how to do and micromanaging it, because that's part of the Dragon Age experience for me. But there have been many occasions where I just got lazy going through more areas that have lower level enemies that I don't really need to worry about, I'll just let the AI do whatever the hell it wants, and I'm just fine. So all I have to do is control my my Inquisitor, and that's it. So in that regard, that has a very similar feeling, albeit the combat is significantly different.
I think though it's like, it's not only that though, but also in Inquisition. Like even if you're only controlling your one character, when I'm playing like my Inquisitor in single player, it feels a lot faster, and there's so much more. Like you can use way more abilities at any given time. For some reason, when I played the multiplayer, I just felt so fucking slow and ponderous, and it just got so boring because I was just moving along at my snail's pace, and then I go up to an enemy and it's like to press A to attack, and it just, I don't know.
I'm wondering too if maybe part of the problem with Dragon Age Inquisition was a budget. Like they didn't have the budget to really go in depth like they did with Mass Effect.
Yep.
Coming out with with the new consoles, they have to kind of learn how to program for that technology. They released on what was like 5 platforms: Xbox 360, Xbox One, PS3, PS4, PC.
I think it's a symptom of the industry as a whole that I mean obviously, and I know that you don't have as much of a problem with it, but like I think this is one of those situations where it negatively affects things, and that
what do you mean
is like streamlining, and like some people call it casualization, but I think streamlining is a better like term for it.
No, I have a problem with casualization.
I think there's a definite like so many designers fall for the whole we have to appeal to as large an audience as possible, so we have to really streamline our game so it's accessible to everyone. But then when you do that, you ignore a significant portion of gamers that are highly dedicated, that enjoy and strive for a complex experience.
I 150% agree with you, and where I think where I get misunderstood. What?
I think that's one of the things that Mass Effect 3 had was complexity. It had a lot of content and a lot of mechanics to study.
I think, and I agree with you. I agree with that whole point. I think where a lot of people maybe get me confused is I don't think every game needs that depth. I think the problem is we need that balance, you know. And so when I say this game might not need that, it's like because you can go here and get that depth, like. Mass Effect honestly didn't need the multiplayer, but it had it, and they did a great job of it. I hope they do a good job of it with Andromeda.
Yeah, I'm banking a lot on that.
Me too.
I'll also bring up that microtransactions. I feel like Mass Effect 3 actually was all right at microtransactions. It wasn't too bad, and it did get us free DLC, but I feel like Inquisition went all in on microtransactions to the point where I felt like it was to the detriment of the entire loot system.
Microtransactions and loot-based games, I don't know. Maybe I
feel like they were about the same.
It wasn't rewarding enough. Like I went into and I'd play a match of Inquisition, I'd finish, and I would get a common level 5 sword, and it's like, this is garbage. It's like, thank you. It's like, thanks.
I'm jaded on it because after playing Black Ops 3. The Black Ops, because now Call of Duty has base kind of microtransactions now.
Of course.
And well, you can earn the things in game kind of like what you will with Mass Effect, but the crypto key drop rate is so low, and the rate of you actually getting something good is so high that it's like, or what you call so low that's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Yay! Shout out to the guy that says I look like a drug dealer. Fuck you. Let's keep going.
Yeah, no, I went ahead and timed him out. The great thing about it, I just want to throw this out there. This is hilarious. Guy made some comment that we all look like virgins. I timed him out. He stayed here watching for 5 minutes just so he could make that drug dealer comment. And you know what? You can keep waiting 5 more minutes. I'll keep timing you out, and then your comments get deleted, and you're just watching it for me. So all you get to do is watch the podcast and then keep getting your comments timed out. So feel free, buddy, to keep doing that. I love it. Anyway, so I think we kind of rambled on off topic for quite long enough on here. let's get to our first story on here. So our first story is, as Botsu's actually been waiting for, is Sony's epic fail for the week. So Sony kind of had this epic customer service fail, and I don't think this is what they do all the time. But in this particular
I didn't even
instance,
talk about the games I played.
Yeah, well, we rambled on for 30 minutes about other stuff.
Yeah,
Let's just talk about games tonight.
I want to talk about Dark Souls.
Okay.
We'll give you some. Talk about Dark Souls in your closing thoughts.
Yeah, there we go. But
there's like so much I could talk about Dark Souls.
Okay, so discussion number 1: should Sony revamp their support?
Well,
answer is yes. Can we move on?
so just to give the
shitty
viewers,
support's shitty.
Yeah,
but Sony's known for shitty support, especially when they're winning.
Yeah. Should insert X company have better support? Answer is yes.
Yeah, it was essentially that the epic fail that they had this week was some guy got his account hacked, which wasn't Sony's fault necessarily. He got his account hacked. Some dude, whoever hacked his account, charged a bunch of games to his PayPal that was linked to his Sony's account, bought a bunch of games on the guy's PSN account. Then the guy went to Sony, first went to PayPal, had the charges frozen. PayPal started their own fraud investigation. Then he went to Sony and was like, essentially was like, hey, I need to recover my account. They worked through him, got his account recovered, everything's good. And then they're like, well, we'll refund you the games, but you have to tell PayPal to close out the fraud investigation on their end, because we can't refund you the games whenever PayPal has all of that stuff frozen. So the guy went and had PayPal close it, which once it's closed, he can't reopen it with PayPal. He closed it out with them, went back to Sony, and they're like, oh, we don't refund any games. And it was just pretty much like, psh, that's what we think about you.
And this is why you always save conversations and document everything whenever.
And I hope they sue the fuck out of Sony.
Yeah, that's where I was saying, like, come on. Like, there's a certain point where, because support personnel are just people that have sometimes very low levels of training that you're talking to. In fact, they may not even understand what you're saying very well, because as we know, we've ran into those support personnel that sometimes don't speak English so well. Regardless, it's still kind of screwy that they kind of are just like, yeah, go ahead and get them to stop that fraud investigation. I'm like, that's not cool, man. The thing is, PayPal, the way they worked, they would have refunded him the money whether or not they got it back from Sony.
Right. But Sony, like, there's actually, this is the 4th or 5th article this generation that I've seen like this. And somebody did that like a year ago, and Sony completely froze their account and booted them off PSN for life.
Yep. And
so it's some fuckery at Sony. And this isn't, to beat up on Sony, try to keep people from PlayStation or whatever.
No.
Yeah. Well, I know people are going to come in the comments saying some shit like that.
Yeah. No. It's not that PSN is bad. PSN's not the greatest, but it's not that the PS4 is bad.
Fine. PSN is fine. The PS4 is fine. It's Sony's customer service in these kind of scenarios that needs to improve.
And that is one area which I will say, at least from my personal experience, Microsoft support tends to be pretty damn good. Like,
Microsoft will hook you up.
Yeah, like anytime I've had a problem with, like, way back in the day with Xbox or even with Windows, anytime I've had to call them up, they're Johnny on the spot. They want to make sure that you're happy. So
I don't know if you guys have had this experience, but with Microsoft support, even like the support people, like, that don't speak English very well, like they try so, like the experience I've had recently, like they try really, really hard, like even though the barrier's there, like I can tell it's a different experience from other companies who outsource like that they've like had a talking to or something, but it's much better than it used to be.
Right. But now, something I will say positive about Microsoft, too. When Quantum Break came out, and I told you guys, I said it on the show a couple weeks ago, I pre-ordered on Xbox thinking I was going to get it on PC the same day. And they're like, okay, the PC port's broken. I'll just play it on Xbox, whatever.
God, that guy is determined as shit.
Oh, he's doing it again?
He's on YouTube
I was,
now.
what you call her? I was, I lost my train of thought now, Morty. After you did that, Quantum Break. I got it on Xbox. Racism. It was unplayable. Yeah, racist people in the comments, whatever. I got it on Xbox. I just found it to be completely unplayable at this point. At that point, the motion blur was too strong in the beginning of the game.
Mm-hmm.
It stuttered a bit. To me, it just didn't perform right. And I played it for about an hour. And Microsoft gave me a refund because I hadn't got my PC code yet. And I used that money and just got it on PC. And I know people are going to say the PC version was bad. I didn't have too many issues with the PC version outside of, the technical limitations, which were beefs of mine.
Mm-hmm.
But outside of those technical limitations, it actually played for me. I was able to complete the game.
Well, and like I said, I haven't seen, the only issues that I've really heard of was the capping the frame rate at 50 frames per second, which to me that's pretty, for a PC game. That just tells me that you've optimized your game really horribly and you have to cap it at 50 frames so people don't notice how badly it's optimized.
Oh, dude, the optimization was so bad. You had 980 Ti's struggling to keep it 50 frames per second at 720p. On like I said, on a 980 Ti on Quantum Break.
That's kind of sad.
That's how bad the optimization is. I was hovering in the 40s, which I'm like, it's not ideal, but I was able to get through the game. And that was at 1440. I'm 70.
Well, at some point I'll get around to trying it with my lackluster hardware and to see how similar my experience is to someone with much higher hardware.
I wouldn't even bother until you got your upgrade. Even then, I wouldn't bother. And they're saying, and according to Remedy, there's some engine issues that they can't even use. They can't even fix the game.
That's kind of sad.
Of course.
Well, that's it's what happens whenever you hire, you essentially put all your eggs in one basket. If you're making a PC game and then you, as an afterthought, try to make a port to consoles, or if you're a console game and you're trying to make it going the other way. Either way, it's kind of, to me, it's a bad idea. It's just something that's really I don't know. Well, in any case, though, yes, Sony epic fail, and Quantum Break also an epic fail. So let's go ahead and get moving on to our second story, since this one is a lot more entertaining to me. And I know Joe will also have a little bit of entertainment with this one. So Oculus is not very happy with a certain service. There's the service for HTC Vive owners called Revive that more or less cracks all of the Rift-only titles. Yes, there are games that are exclusive to the Oculus Rift for some reason or another. Is essentially those games, got hacked, or at least a couple of them, by the software Revive, and Oculus isn't too happy about it. My whole thing is do you guys really think that VR peripherals should be an area that merits exclusive games? If they're VR is VR, when you look at the specs of them, they're 98% identical. Should Oculus really be getting an exclusive title set for it?
Consoles use exclusives. Just push that they're still relevant, and PC blows them out of the water. I'm not surprised that they're.
There's no real reason outside of there's no real reason outside of money now. With current technology, why consoles should have exclusive games.
Oh, of course.
Right. Well, nowadays when you get a console and you look at
there's
I think they're very slight. I don't like the idea of exclusivity, but the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One are so similar
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm seeing somebody who plays them both regularly. That really the only difference that might sway you to one or the other. And I think that even the same with the 360 and the PS3 in a sense. That I can play God of War and Uncharted, or I can play Halo and Gears of War here. Otherwise, you just say, okay, well, I'm gonna just pick the cheaper one, and a lot of people just pick the cheaper one anyway. It just kind of depends. But I do think, in that respect, they are kind of relevant. But at the same time, if you're a fan of a certain IP, you're gonna go with the console you like anyway.
Yep.
Like no matter what games you put on Xbox, there's a chance I'm always got a PlayStation.
I'm going to throw it out there. Zyphon made the best question to kind of show the silliness of this is, do certain games require a specific brand of monitor?
Can we redact that statement? I don't want to give these companies ideas. No, it doesn't make any sense. In some strange or maybe not so strange world, do I think it's a possibility? Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody is really no life in tonight.
I know, right?
He got a crush on me.
He's trying.
He's making new accounts back and forth.
I feel like he might be one of those. What do they call them? The people that have a certain sexual fetish for certain races, I think, is what's going on. He's flirting with you, Kev.
I'll flirt with his sister.
He's no. You know what it is?
Like it.
You know what it is? He's mad because way back in the day when your Xbox or your personality was your girl wants Kev, his girl did.
His girl did Kev, probably.
that's what it is. Anyway, so yeah, I don't know. To me, like the whole thing of if I buy an Acer Predator monitor, I need an Acer Predator in order to play, some video game. That to me, that's that's a slippery slope fallacy in itself, because it's trying to say that somehow the Oculus Rift doing that is going to lead to everybody doing it, which is not the case.
Right, I think the difference is, and I think this is why Zyphon's argument is for me doesn't make a lot of sense, is that this is just part of consoles over time. Like consoles have kind of always done this. Mm-hmm. This isn't, VR shouldn't have exclusives.
But a VR headset is not a console; it's a peripheral.
Right, and that's what that's what I'm getting at. Is that I don't necessarily think VR shouldn't. And the reason I don't think monitors really make sense for it is because monitors sit in the PC space where exclusives don't make sense at all. And VR, I don't want to sound like an elitist, and I don't want to say something that I could be completely ignorant on. I have very little faith in PlayStation VR as far as putting out a quality VR experience. Mm-hmm. I just don't think the horsepower's there.
Yep, that's the thing, is that I don't know. I get where you're going with that, and I kind of agree with you in a certain respect that VR headset is a step up from an actual console, and the kind of the horsepower needs to be there, so you're kind of getting a certain you have to have a certain grade of system for it too. And consoles really can't get into that whole fight, because they're really, there's, like you said, there's not really the hardware platform for them to really be in a VR console war. I just feel like it's not really in the friendly zone of PC gaming to try to force it.
You don't think there'll be a VR console war? Come on, they have an AMD versus NVIDIA war.
That is going to be, hopefully, and the AMD Intel. I hope that those ones end up being platform wars or hardware wars, whatever you want to call it, for many years to come. But the games still play. Now, granted, NVIDIA's had some issues with their GameWorks or BrokeWorks, whatever you want to call that. BrokeWorks.
Games are playing better on the AMD these days, on the newer AMD cards.
Yeah, no, that's not wrong at all. But no, like I still have a lot of problem with how Oculus did it, and I have no doubt that is almost certainly Facebook behind that choice to have exclusive games marketed for it. It's like
I wouldn't be surprised, bro.
You have the cheaper platform, at least the cheaper entry price for a platform. That should have been what you stood on. But instead, you're trying to lock into this exclusivity stuff, and then you get upset whenever Revive comes around and cracks your free games. They didn't even crack the paid-for games. The guy who developed Revive specifically said he didn't do the paid games just in case in the future those games are patched in some way where they're not crackable by his software anymore. People aren't going to be out any money. The guy is obviously not trying to profit from this endeavor. All he's doing is more or less saying, you know what, Oculus, this is what I think about you. You're number one in my book. And I'm going to let people that have the HTC hardware that's superior to yours in some regards, I'm going to let them have a little bit more fun. But yes, and I do agree with Botsu on a certain degree where I think that VR is a bit gimmicky. I don't think it's as gimmicky as 3D TVs.
It's up there.
It's up there. It's not quite as gimmicky as that, mainly because I think that 3D TVs did not appeal to a very select subset of PC gamers. So, like a 3D TV, 3D monitors, a lot of your people that played exclusive PC games wanted really high-end hardware. They weren't really getting the 3D monitor so much. But they are getting the VR headsets. They're actually selling a lot better.
Right, I would think, what about the curved monitor? I would think a curved monitor would be better for that too. And I think the thing that kind of worries me about VR, especially on PC, is you gotta have some money to play on PC. Just at least the upfront costs. And so most of the people who play on PC because of that are adults. And most of the time, a lot of the time, I should say, adults have children. That worries me about VR because, like, okay, at least when I meet people in PC games, a lot of people have, they're married, jobs, kids, all that good shit. How many of them are going to put a VR headset on? Like, I'm not going to put a VR headset on knowing I have kids running around the house.
That's where I was at. I'm the main reason why I haven't bought into the whole VR stuff is simply because I like my situational awareness. I'm not too keen on.
I don't know. I get so into video games sometimes that I don't even know anybody's around.
But you don't have kids.
Somebody could watch. I'm the oldest of 6 children. There are children running around my house. Somebody could walk in my room and steal something and walk out, and I probably wouldn't know at some points during playing video games.
Well, no, I can get absorbed into a video game, most certainly. I definitely agree. But I don't like the fact that I don't have an option to passively watch a video game cutscene, for example. Say it's a cutscene that for some reason I can't skip, which aren't really a thing much anymore, thankfully. But if it was a cutscene I can't skip and I want to look away from the screen, hey, guess what? I can't. I look away from the screen, and guess what? I'm still looking at the screen. So that's part of my problem. Now,
I'm one of the few people around who still love cutscenes. I still watch cutscenes.
That depends. Have you watched it 50 times before? Is this like your 6th playthrough of the game? You know what I mean?
See, I don't play a lot of games that many times.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. Is that yeah. But in any case, so here's my thing: is that what I will say about the gimmickiness of VR? Yes, it is gimmicky. Yes, it probably won't last. For the most part on there, what I will say is that it's going to pave the way for AR and, more very high-end AR. I don't know if HoloLens is really going to do it because so far what I've seen of it, I've been kind of unimpressed. But there are other hardware manufacturers out there that I'm certain that can put together a good AR kit that'll be pretty awesome. And I'm okay with that. Anyway, let's get moving on here since obviously we all seem to agree, except for Joe, who I think fell asleep. Aside from,
Joe's out here slapping this guy in the comment section.
Oh yeah,
he's been slapping this dude.
I guess he finally got banned, so I'm not sure if he's over on.
I banned him.
Yeah, now if he cares that much.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty certain. I mean, he did follow me on Twitch, so I guess that's saying something. I don't know what the heck
If it's the
that's
same
about.
person.
I'm pretty certain it is. I mean, he came in there saying the exact same stuff after I timed him out twice from Twitch. So I'm almost certain it's the same person that's trolling.
Oh shit, Bose is bringing it back. The Virtual Boy though.
Hell yeah,
that black
Virtual
and red,
Boy. Yeah.
And that shit was an epic fail.
Yeah. No, come on
that
now.
Shit failed.
Come on now. That it succeeded 10% of the time. It succeeded 100% of the time.
That shit failed harder than Hulk Hogan's daughter's music career.
There was so many VR solutions back in the late 80s, early 90s that were pretty bad. I mean, come on now.
That was like, what, 1983, I think?
Yeah, I mean, come on now. You even look at like Lawnmower Man. That was all based on the VR situation. And I really don't think people want this VR thing to really succeed. And let's be honest, until we have Nerve gear, it's not going to happen.
Mario Tennis, though.
Yeah.
I never played Mario Tennis.
Let's get off of the VR stuff. Like, honestly, yes, Botsu, we get it. You're old.
We're all old, bruh. It happens to all of us.
But in not so old news, even though Kev thinks it's old, maybe because he heard it a while ago. So Rust started at the beginning of this last week, started the official rollout of their whole randomly gender and race assignments in the game. Previously in Rust, everybody was a bald white guy, and apparently people are upset about that because you don't get to choose. It more or less randomly assigns it based upon your Steam ID. By some manner or another, it figures out whether to assign you. Obviously, people get upset because they don't want to play as a woman when they're a guy, or vice versa, or they don't want to play. They
don't want to be a black guy. Let's be real about it.
Because hey, I bet you could do a social study and find out for like some kind of statistic that the players that walk up to you as black people get attacked more quickly, or are less likely to be trusted.
Actually, sadly enough, that wouldn't surprise me. I mean, hell, look at the comment section today.
Yeah,
on the video, on just in the chat, and they're just being attacked because I'm black. Like,
yep.
But I said, that's the internet in general. Like, they attack you because you're different.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that the reason behind their assignment of an appearance of some kind was so that people would have some kind of better identity. So, if that same person keeps running up to you and trying to attack you, you can start to recognize, hey, it's some black chick that keeps coming up to me, rather than, hey, look, it's another bald white guy.
Right. So, I mean, it could be anything. Like, the fact that you're just different, people are going to attack it. So,
yeah.
Like they would say, like, oh, well, this is an all-female server. There's a man. Attack him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's what it is.
It's it's something that I personally didn't see too much of the problem, because it's a first-person game anyway. You don't really even see your own character. And the thing is that the Rust developers have specifically said that they don't care about you making your own character, because this game is not about your own personal identity. They don't want focused on that. So they did it just to have some kind of unique visual identification of a player. My question to you guys is, what are your thoughts on a game randomly assigning you an appearance without your choice on the matter? Do you think that's something that fits into that game?
I think they should have just made them androgynous purple aliens.
Victory! get this man winning Powerball ticket.
Androgynous purple aliens.
I sincerely do not give a fuck.
Like, yeah, I really don't care. And like,
that's kind of what I'm figuring most people are. There's a few select people out there that are all uppity on it because, let's be honest.
Like, what I'm really like, it surprises me because like this exists for a lot of things in a lot of places, like there will always be a small, loud portion of people that are going to complain about things. Sometimes it's right, and other times it's silly.
I will throw it out there.
I would say there's always a couple bad
Rust
apples.
was one of the first survival games. Just throwing that out there.
Yeah, like I mean, there's always a few bad apples out there.
Yeah.
Like I think another big one in the news is just police brutality. And if you don't know anybody, you think police whooping everybody's ass. No, it's just a few bad cops.
Yeah,
there's still a lot of good cops out there.
Yeah, and that's the thing that you run into, and you think that a lot of these survival horror games, or I should say, just survival nonsense games, in my opinion, like Rust and Ark and whatever, are pretty much all about trolling everybody. That's kind of the feeling that you get from them based upon how everybody talks. This guy came up to me and he killed me for no reason, or he helped me get some cool item and then killed me and took it from me, blah, blah, blah. It's pretty much the same thing with
I thought that was
Division's...
just the Division.
Yeah, no, the Division's dark zones, sectors,
zone.
Whatever, are pretty much, to me, feel like about the same thing. They have
you pretty much have to have a group of friends to run around with, or you're going to get raped. No Vaseline.
Yeah. But the thing is, though, is that I kind of am right there with you guys, that I feel like it's like, in Botsu, no, you don't get a new race or gender. It's permanently fixed to your Steam ID, so you have it permanently. But so my thing on there is I'm right there with you guys. Like, it doesn't really matter to me, and I think you have people that are essentially upset about this. I notice are two groups of people. Either people that are racist or sexist, obviously in one area. I don't want to play as a black person, I don't want to play as a woman, or I don't want to play as a man because they are sexist or racist. But the other group of people that are trying to push some kind of social agenda. Like I kid you not, transgender people trying to say that this issue is trying to push some transphobic agenda. And I'm like, what? Are you kidding? Really?
And I'll be the first person. I don't even want to sound too ignorant with this. I don't understand trans. Like, I understand what they're feeling, but I can't relate to it completely.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for me, it's like, how is this? Because when I hear it in the way it's described to me, it's like, and somebody please correct me. Like, I don't want to sound like the expert on this. I'm not trying to bash anybody here. When I hear people talk about it, it sounds like they're saying, oh, I feel like I'm a man in a woman's body or a woman in a man's body. Isn't that kind of what this game is doing? Unless I'm, completely off, which I totally admit to beforehand.
Well,
No, it's the reason why they're upset about it. They were saying they were upset about it, and I'm not going to lay any opinions on here one way or another, because that's not what this podcast is about. Is they were saying specifically that the fact that it would lock them into a specific gender and they were unable to change that gender, that's why it was transphobic. Whether they... Yeah, well, I mean, not as much anymore, because you're not really.
Right, but even when you're trans, in your mind, if you're female but physically male, isn't that kind of the same thing? I don't know.
But you can change it in real life. That's all I'm saying. We'll kind of move on from that, because, like I said, that's getting out of the gaming world and into the political world.
We've done some politics so many times here. We used to do it with games.
Yeah, we just try to keep it in the realm of games, right? And like I said, to me, like, it's either political agendas or personal bias that are kind of affecting that, and I kind of feel like, you people are just trying to make mountains out of molehills. You don't even look at your character and get over it. Play the game,
once you're in the game, there really is no difference.
Yeah, because all you see is, oh my gosh, I'm upset because I see brown hands hitting a tree.
Right. Now, I will say, for me personally, I wish there were more good black roles in games, lead roles, and not them be the stereotype. And I've said that on this show before. That is something I wish I'd see more of. So, I do make a lot of black characters. But at the same time, if you assign me a white guy, I'm going to play a white guy like I do in every other game where I play as a white guy.
Is this going to come into the conversation about how many awards have been given to black actors for leading roles?
No, because I don't know how many have been. I know there are some amazing white actors. There are some amazing black actors. I'm sure there's. I wish I saw more lead Asian and Hispanic actors.
Yep.
If you have the skills, do it.
I tell you what. What is it?
Freaking Motoko Kurosaki.
I was about to say. I was like,
yeah, no, we're not even gonna go there. That is
Far Cry Primal would have been. Far Cry Primal would have been a much more interesting game for me if it had been set in ancient Africa. Personally speaking, I think that would have been a much better
It's a fictional setting. I'm not sure where it's at.
Yeah, I mean it's fictional setting, but based off of.
I hear you.
Certain culture and stuff.
Like they had the African culture going on and everything. It kind of felt South American a little bit, maybe even Latin American, but I could be totally off.
Which one was that? Was that
the new Primal?
Primal?
Yeah, the one I was playing a few weeks back when you're in the Stone Age.
Yeah, I kind of felt like that's generic.
Morty, did we lose you?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. No, I was saying I'm not entirely certain on that one. It seems like a generic prehistoric area.
Yeah, exactly. That's my problem with it.
It's very generic.
It feels bland, but whatever.
It's so much fun, dude. The game is so much fun.
Yeah. But anyway, let's go ahead and get moving on. Since we're on time this week, we may finish on time. Who knows? We'll see. Let me see if I
have 2 hours of footage.
let me see. Let me see if I can fix that.
We got an hour of Dark Souls 3 to talk about.
That's true. So in any case,
let's go to the evergreen topic, and then if we have time, we'll let Joe talk. I saw Joe's expression when I said that.
Well, in any case, though, on our evergreen topic, this will be something that we could actually, roll into Dark Souls easily enough. So, now my reference for this, my point of reference was some interviews that DICE did with about Mirror's Edge Catalyst and some changes they're making to the game mechanics. That some people are happy, some people aren't. You know how it goes. So design direction is kind of where this boils down to, and let's discuss some subtle things that we've noticed that developers have done in games that for better or worse attempt to aim a player or aim the player experience in a certain direction. Now, to give a preface, example as a preface here, in Mirror's Edge Catalyst, they have first of all taken away the ability for you to wield guns. They have also locked some of the abilities behind skill trees instead of having them available to you. And their reasoning behind this is because, first of all, no guns because you're supposed to be focused on the running, which, to be frankly honest, is not a big loss. Anybody who played the original Mirror's Edge knew that you didn't really want to use the guns anyway. It just was a distraction. The second thing on there is locking skills behind skill trees. The justification was so you had time to practice with a certain interactional ability, like rolling on the ground after you land from a fall or whatever. It gives you some time to practice with it before you get another one, so it pieces those abilities out to you. And my question to you all is, what other subtle things like that you've seen in games have adjusted the focus of the game for you? Like maybe in a way that you didn't like. And we'll start with Kev.
I was going to say go to Joe, because Joe's talking a little bit about this with Dark Souls 2 versus Dark Souls 3.
Okay, that works. Go ahead, Joe.
I was trying to wait for people to quiet down in the background. But anyway, we know with Dark Souls 3, for example, so there's always, like in Dark Souls 3 especially, the maps are very open-ended. Like, even though generally you're heading towards, the boss, there's a lot of branching paths, and there's lots of items hidden along branching paths. And I like how they've set up a system where it's like, you drop your... It's been in since Dark Souls 1, you drop your souls, which is your not only your currency, but also your upgrading, what you use to level up. You drop that when you die, and you have to go re-pick it up if you want to regain them and not lose them permanently. So I like how, for example, I've had points where it's like, I'm working through this area to get an item that will unlock a thing for the shopkeeper to be able to stock some rare upgrade materials. But they're expensive, so I'm sitting on a big bundle of souls. It's like, do I want to have to run through this area with my big-ass bundle of souls, risking the chance that I'll die and lose them, so that I can save them to spend on the upgrade materials? Or do I just want to spend them now and get them out of there because you can't bank them? So it's like, do I just want to spend them so I don't lose them? Or do I want to take the risk and be able to buy these materials later on? Like, I like how there's designs like that where it's like, it makes you decide whether you want to take risks or not with certain actions.
Now, was that the way they designed it in Dark Souls 3? Kind of plays more towards that than 2?
Definitely. 2 was very much a lot more linear. It didn't have a lot of the branching paths. The levels weren't as complex. And it was a lot easier of a game, I will say. Like Dark Souls 3, especially later on, is probably the hardest Souls game I've played. I haven't played Demon Souls and I haven't played Bloodborne, but general consensus was Bloodborne was like one of the easiest anyway.
It's very casualized.
Bloodborne felt crazy easy. I put it down after like the first hour or so because it felt so easy.
Dark Souls 3 is much closer to Dark Souls 1 in a lot of the things that matter. Like the level and world design is back. Areas you go through are just like... There's much more attention to how levels connect. Dark Souls 2 had a big problem of... Take, for example, there's this one area you go to. It's like this mining area. And it's filled like this... it's just like a mining colony that leads up to almost like this... Earthen Peak, it's called, like this castle-looking building that goes up. You go through the mining area, and then you go up to the top of this castle, and after you beat the boss at the top of this like castle-like building, there's an elevator that goes up. Take the elevator up, when you get off it, you're in a fucking castle submerged in lava. It's just like, what the fuck? It's like, I just went from the top of this castle into this... No, Dark Souls 2. This is Earthen Peak into the Iron Keep. Stuff like that is like indicative of there was just very little thought placed into how things connected. But then it was like Dark Souls 3, though, it's back to the, if you're in an area and you look forward and it's like you see a building off in the distance, this vista, it's like, I'm probably going to go there and I'm probably going to kill stuff there eventually.
Probably going to kill stuff there. So were the did you feel like...
bosses?
Yeah.
No, my idea is I'm eventually gonna go there and be killed by something terrible and horrifying.
That was the joke I
learn
made.
its moveset and then I'll wreck its shit.
Yeah, that was the joke I made. Is that like Kev was like, "Man, I died 2 times in the original area," and my comment, really cool my response was, "I died on the store page."
Damn.
Dark Souls 3 took actually a lot of the good influences from Bloodborne. Surprisingly enough, like there's several areas which I get the feeling are like, you know what? This could be in Bloodborne, and it wouldn't feel out of place, like this area. Mm-hmm. Like, it still has... It's not, like, something totally like Bloodborne, but it feels like they definitely... Okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, you. No.
I was going to say, it feels like they've taken some good influences from there, and they've done that also with a lot of the enemy design. Like, there are some really horrifying, eldritch-looking enemies and bosses here, much more so than Dark Souls 2, as Botsu's bringing up. Dark Souls 2 had very easy bosses, and a lot of them were just big knights with weapons. Dark Souls 3, it's like the first boss, it's like, you go up to him and it's like, oh, it's this like big knight-looking guy with a spear. Halfway through the fight, he has a second stage, he like has like this black shadowy creature like emerge out of his arm and like mutates into this monstrous-looking thing. And
I like to from now on refer to that second stage as a second form.
The question is it his final form?
It's what?
Depends.
Is it his final form?
I mean, you kill him and that's it. He dies.
Yeah, he's pretty easy. I killed him on my first try.
I died. And even when I started my new character, I died to him on the first go. You know why? Because his attacks are slow, and it throws off my timing and my dodges because he's so slow.
See, and that's what I think is doing well for me. I'm playing as a pyromancer, a high dex pyromancer with lots of endurance. So I'm outrolling everything. Yeah, I'm doing a dex build with pyromancy, high faith, high intelligence.
It feels a lot faster. Like, that's what I kind of like. Like, they managed to take the speed of Bloodborne, but not quite as much. Like, Bloodborne was a little too fast, and your, like, stamina basically regenerated instantly. Dark Souls 3 is faster than 1 or 2, but it's not quite over the top like Bloodborne, and your stamina does still mean something.
I feel like in Bloodborne, you have to be aggressive. And I feel like Dark Souls, if you try to be aggressive in Dark Souls, you will still get your ass kicked.
It depends. Yeah. I will say with my high dex character, I specialized in using, later on there's these scimitar weapons you get, where when you one-hand it, you wield the one scimitar. When you instead of two-handing the scimitar, you wield 2 of them in each hand. And I found with that weapon set up with a dex build, a lot of enemies, my best bet was waiting for an opening and then rushing in and stun locking them, basically, and just beating them down.
So what you're saying,
Joe, I'm really glad that's a part of the game, Joe, because in like that's something that kind of bothered me in Dark Souls 1 is like you had variety in builds and variety in weapons, but like the combat like pacing was similar with almost all weapons, right? Like wait for opening, slash once or twice, back up, wait for opening, slash once or twice, back up. That
Dark Souls 3 has some enemies that you just can't do. Like there's this catacomb area you go into with skeletal enemies. There was this one enemy that you go up to and he has like this purple looking hood on. It's still a skeleton, but you see he has red glow, and I was like, maybe he'll be a little bit more difficult. Let me just approach him carefully. He does like a fucking twirl backflip, throws kukri knives at you, and then whips out scimitars, or he pulls out like these shotel like hook weapons, and he just starts flipping around the place, agile as fuck, and he just, holy shit, he kicked my ass when I ran into him first time. It's like he hits you through your shield a lot of the time too. Like a lot of his damage will go through your shield.
Yeah.
So you have to be much more like. But what I found is again his poise is kind of low. So what you do is you dodge a couple of his hits until he's out at he's finished his combo, and then you just rush him down and you try to kill him before he starts up his combo. He'll actually dodge though if you don't after a couple hits. He won't just sit there and take all your hits. There's a lot of really aggressive enemies in Dark Souls 3. Like I was saying, it takes some things from Bloodborne there. And that carries over some bosses.
Yeah, and range is your friend. Range is your friend.
Yep.
Oh, my bow.
Earlier, what I was trying to say is something I really liked about Bloodborne was I really like Dark Souls aesthetic, but Bloodborne's aesthetic is really, really good. I hope they revisit it.
It feels like they kind of mixed them. There are, again, a lot of enemy designs that feel like they could come out of Bloodborne.
Yeah, I think the most important thing that came out of Bloodborne was that aesthetic. I really liked it. I think that it could be explored much more, and I think if the writers went back and read more of where they pulled a lot of this imagery from, I think it could turn out to be an artistic masterpiece if they bring out another Bloodborne game.
Oh yeah,
use that. They go and read a bunch of Lovecraft.
From my understanding, though, From Software isn't going to do another Bloodborne at least for a while if they do it. They said that they're done with the Souls games for a while after Dark Souls 3.
They made a lot of them in a row, so we'll see.
Yeah, because they did Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, then and plus Bloodborne. Now you have the spin-offs too, like Salt and Sanctuary and Lords of the Fallen. It's time to give the Souls games a little bit of a break, I think.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. I
was going to bring up real quick for Botsu with the armor. One cool change they made is that you no longer upgrade your armor, and a lot of the armor has been standardized in a way where it's even less important, what resistances you have. So it feels much more like they're you know what, wear whatever looks good, just Fashion Souls all the way.
Oh, this is more Fashion Souls. Can I try to get the
much more about Fashion Souls.
I took one of the Bible lady. I can't remember her name. The one I told you about, the one that tried to hug you with the flames.
Yeah,
she has a big book. I took one. I have one of her outfits, but I fat roll every time I put it on.
like heavy armors give you some damage resistance bonuses, but nowhere near as much as it makes that much of a difference. Really, just wear what you think looks good, and as long as your encumbrance is under 70%, so you don't fat roll, you're fine.
I'm fat rolling at like 50%, dude.
So you shouldn't be. It only fat rolls at 70.
So I've only seen a couple of images from Dark Souls 3, and I think the thing about it that's made me the happiest is the return of the Hornet's Nest style helmet.
Oh man, they've brought back tons of armor sets
neck helmet
from Dark Souls 1 and 2.
It's so good.
They brought back so many armor sets.
So the question I have, and this reminded me whenever Botsu was talking about rage quitting Demon Souls, it reminded me of when I rage quit Demon Souls, is the Penetrator. Any bosses on there with the extremely long and fast moving cheap weapons that like scam you so many times?
Dark Souls 2 is fair. Dark Souls in general, I feel, is very fair.
Dark Souls 3 later on has some bosses that are just like, once you eventually learn their moveset, it's still a tough fight, but it gets a little bit better. But man, when you go in blind, like there was one called the Pontiff Sullivan. Pontiff, I think, is his title.
Yeah.
We prefer the term going dry here.
He pulls out like dual curved swords. One of them's magic, one's fire. And his combos are insane. Just twirls around everywhere. Halfway through the fight, he creates a fucking shadow clone of himself that follows him around, and he'll mirror the moveset of it. But they both can hit you. So you're basically fighting like two of them at once. It's crazy hard.
So let me get this straight. You're saying you got your ass kicked when you went in dry on this guy once you hit his second form.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I died in his first form. Like, he's so tough, man. No, Ornstein and Smo were easy compared to this guy. Like, holy shit, this guy was hard.
Ornstein and Smo will still be one of the best,
it's hard
created
if you're solo.
boss fights.
Ornstein and Smo is like the moment you bring in a summon, Ornstein and Smo gets so much easier.
Were they in Dark Souls 1, I take it?
Yeah, they were in Dark Souls 1.
Okay, that's why I didn't get that far in Dark Souls 1.
You should really go back and play till at least that point. Like, I think Ornstein and Smo is one of the best boss fights.
My plan is to beat Dark Souls 3. I have the Season Pass too, so I'm going to just play through all of it.
Oh, you bought the Season Pass?
Yeah, it was the same price. I might as well have.
I think Artorias is up there too. The Artorias fight's really, really good. Are there any similar fights in Dark Souls 3 so far to Artorias?
What about Flame Lurker?
Flame Lurker. Come on. They're basically Artorias turned up to 11. Like that one fight I was telling you about, the Nameless King. First stage of the fight literally has you fighting him while he's riding on a dragon. You have to kill his dragon, and then after you kill the dragon, you have to fight him after he's powered up. And he's fucking crazy.
So basically, you have to get good after he got good and continue to get wrecked. That's what I'm doing. Get good and get wrecked at the same time. Summon many times. I'll be calling on my fellow Sun Bros.
See,
Dark Souls 2 was good for PvP. It's just its PvE was kind of.
Speaking of PvP, do they have any set up in DS3 yet?
PvP is awesome in Dark Souls 3. Like, what's great is they brought back the full Red Eye Orb that was missing from Dark Souls 2, and you can get it early. So invasions are super common, but what they've done is they've prioritized it and set it up in such a way where it's much more likely for invaders to get into people's worlds who have summons. So if you're on your own, you're much less likely. But like every time I play, moment I get a summon in, boom, I'm invaded like every time. But you know what? They've set up different covenants better, like the Way of Blue and the Blue Sentinels, which were in Dark Souls 2. They weren't that great because the Blue Sentinels had to wear a ring. And, you had to be part of this covenant. They've also changed the covenants so that you get a covenant item, and you can swap that out at will, and it allows you to switch your covenant around. So you no longer have to travel to the guy and then join the covenant again. Like, you can switch it on the fly. So it's much more likely that people be in the Way of Blue, which is the one where you summon in a Blue Sentinel if you're invaded as someone to help you. Because it's like you have no benefit from any other covenant while you're playing through the level, so most people will default to Way of Blue, which means Blue Sentinels and the Dark Moon Blades actually are able to summon into people's worlds to fight off invaders.
It's actually,
How do you join the Way of Blue? I read something that you have to go talk to like this
the woman
NPC.
You talk to that woman who's across from like that second boss, I think it is.
Oh, the one where we were talking about with the blue knight that kicks my ass.
Yeah, you talk to that woman and she gives you the item for it, the Way of Blue.
Oh, okay. So yes, I think I might already have that one then. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you just equip the item and boom, you're in the Covenant.
Okay, awesome.
Covenant's in general really well done, and they've changed it so that like Dark Souls 2 had the name engraved ring, which was an item where you put it on and then you choose from a list of gods, and it's like it makes it so your summon sign appears only to other people who had the ring on and chose the same god as you. They've changed that now, so you go into the menu, and there's an actual thing where it's like set a password, and you put in a password, and it changes it so that you will only see someone who has the exact same password as you, and what's really nice is they made it so if someone has the same password as you, it doesn't matter how much higher or lower level they are, you can still summon them. They're scaled, of course, to your level some. Like if they're really high level and you're going through a low level area, their health will be lowered some. But so I can go, and even with my level 80 character, get summoned by someone who's level 20 if we're using password.
Like me, like I'm level 27, I think.
Yeah, like you can summon my level 80 endgame character.
Mm-hmm. That's not too bad.
So what's the password?
Well, I like this too because, like, if you like to co-op it with friends, this is a great way to do it.
It means you no longer have to worry about having like your certain level or whatnot. And they got rid of soul memory, which was a good idea.
That. Well, my understanding is too that soul memory is still there, but you can only invade someone with like a higher soul level than you.
It's all based around soul level. Like soul memory, the problem with it is it just counted your accumulated souls. So if you were to accumulate like 100,000 souls and then just lose them, your soul memory went up, but you didn't get to spend those souls. So it punished you for losing souls much harder. Dark Souls 3, it's like you lose souls, it's like you lost time. Like it's easy enough to go do co-op and farm up souls. Like you lost some time, it's unfortunate, but you aren't gimped as a character.
Oh, in Dark Souls 3, how did they handle the respawning of enemies? Because I know I didn't like how they did it in Dark Souls 2.
They got rid of the limit. Like they'll always respawn when you hit a bonfire.
that's good. I thought
they got rid of the limit on them.
I thought that was terrible. I was upset when they did that.
I understood
they
why.
They hit a bonfire and they come back.
But yeah, it ended up being bad. But yeah, they got rid of that. So enemies will keep respawning.
That works.
I'm trying to think because there was a hidden covenant I saw on a walkthrough I was looking at, or I got lost.
The thing about Dark Souls is I don't like it when my meat grinder shuts down. Like I want it to just keep to be there. Like.
Oh yeah, they'll respawn.
Oh yeah, farming. I've been farming a lot. Like I said, I'm still kind of in the undead settlement. I've been farming a lot. That and I've been lost, and I've died a lot.
Like I said, I died at the Steam store page, so unfortunately, there's no respawn from that point. If you die there, you're done. You don't even get one soul for that.
We got to get Morty upgraded, then we got to get him on this Dark Souls life.
Anyway, verdict: Dark Souls 3 so far is extremely good. I beat it this morning. I'm at 60 hours.
Yeah, see that disappointed me because I think I'm like I have to look at my Steam. I think I'm like 7 hours at this point.
It's so good.
7 hours. Well, my problem is it's just my work schedule. I literally after I work all day, I have like an hour to play a day.
You're doing better than I am. I just have poor time management though. A lot of it is, So, but yeah, so other games that you can think of that have also made subtle changes kind of like that have changed the way you kind of focus on the game. I can give
Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2 is a huge one.
Yeah,
the way the gun mechanics work.
Yeah, they overhauled the entire combat system on Mass Effect 2.
Dragon Age
I feel like they sped it up a lot by changing the gun mechanics.
Let's mention something specific. Mass Effect 1 to Mass Effect 2. A very specific thing that they changed going from one game to the other that was a change in focus was the clips, the thermal clips. Because obviously Mass Effect 1... Yeah, Mass Effect 1, you just had the heat mechanics to worry about. In Mass Effect 2, since the guns generated so much more heat, they just equipped him with thermal clips and then more or less gave a reloading.
It still makes no sense, but I think from a gameplay perspective, I think it ended up being better for the game because it's like Mass Effect 1 was great, but when you got a new assault rifle, it's like it was another assault rifle. Like they all fired the same. They had different stats. It was like the Dragon Age Inquisition issue.
Once you got all the Spectre gear up to rank 10.
Yeah, there was no reason to use anything else.
Yeah.
I feel like changing the clip and magazine setup made it much more variety to the weapons.
It's not just that. It wasn't just variety, though. It changed the way you fundamentally play the game with any gun, you know.
It sped up the combat. Like, you didn't spend as much time sitting behind cover waiting for a gun to cool down. And to add to that, the cooldowns on powers, instead of having like a minute-long fucking cooldown, you have a universal cooldown that's usually like 3 to 5 seconds or something like that.
Well, I'm going to cut you a little bit just because it looks like we cut out a little bit. It said Morty had stopped streaming. I don't know if he is or isn't. Morty,
I know. I'm still here. I'm still streaming. It still
okay,
says I'm good.
It cut out for a second. Okay, so he cut out for a second and then he came back. Okay.
Yeah.
That's how we lost you.
Just throwing out there. I have not seen any interruptions on my end. I've got my command center up here notifying me of all the technical mumbo jumbo that nobody else cares about.
Is that like the stats for nerds when you right click on the YouTube screen?
So I've got a game that I think has an interesting, and I don't know if it was an intended change, but the differences between Borderlands and Borderlands 2. Like Borderlands 1, the way the loot system was set up, it felt much more like whimsical, and like loot was the point of the game. But Borderlands 2, it became like, it felt like an MMO almost, like the style of grind and the way that it led the players and the community to act was not dissimilar to like an MMO or maybe like a Diablo game. And that was, I didn't like that as much.
I feel like in Borderlands 2, legendaries were so much more rare than they should have been. Like, they eventually, like, only in the past year or so, they released a patch for Borderlands 2 that, like, made it 4 times more likely to get a legendary now. Like, increased the drop chance by 4 times. Because they finally acknowledged, like, hey, maybe, people like to get legendaries when they're playing without grinding for them. Because you know how rare it would be, like, doing an actual just normal playthrough without any grinding? How rare it was to see a legendary? Like, it was super rare. You got lucky to see 1 or 2.
I remember going through Borderlands 1 the first time and just, like, being marveled at getting, I get a new gun and like, oh man, like, this is so awesome. Like, it might just be slightly different, but it felt so, like, the guns felt so different in between each, pickup. And then in Borderlands 2, I'd pick up a new gun and I'm like, it's either the same or, slightly worse or slightly better, but it didn't really change up the gameplay feel very much. And, it was just kind of like,
I think some of that might have been I think we ended up looking into the mechanics of Borderlands 2 more than the original. Because I remember Borderlands 1, it was like I went to play it and it's like, I just played it. I didn't look up anything, and that's what led me much more like, guns felt more variety. Borderlands 2 was the beginning of when I started looking online, and I found like how weapons follow certain archetypes, and certain manufacturers will give certain attributes, and you figure out this. It's like this thing where it's like once you figure out what the system is, it's like you see behind the curtain, and it's like it's a lot less interesting and glamorous than you think it's going to be. Borderlands 1 was kind of like we didn't look behind the curtain; we just left it there, and we're like. Really? I loved the pre-sequel. I liked the pre-sequel more than Borderlands 2.
I think Borderlands.
I felt like it was better balanced.
I think the devs, like, from the devs' behavior, they made a push for that though. They made a push for their community, their player base to do that.
And that's what I feel like was a problem with Borderlands 2. Is they made it just so rare to get some of these legendaries.
Like I feel like the like elitism of the community, because Borderlands 2 felt much more like hardcore than Borderlands 1 did for me.
It feels like part of the problem might have been Borderlands 2. It ended up being something where they pushed bosses' difficulties, and not like through actual natural difficulty, but artificial difficulty, giving them ridiculous resistance, especially raid bosses.
Gear check.
You had to min-max.
Bullet sponges.
No,
you had to min-max.
Like
so it was like
what was he called? The guy that like sent out the really, really big waves and like jumped everywhere if you didn't kill him fast.
Yeah, the
Like,
Hyperion or whatever.
yeah,
Raid bosses were ridiculous.
His attacks were literally gear checks.
Like,
if you didn't have the right gear, you would instantly die to him. You had no chance.
Yeah, and I feel like that was a big problem. Like, it was the MMO push in Borderlands 2. That's why I feel like pre-sequel did a better job. I feel like pre-sequel is better balanced. And I like the raid bosses actually seem to have more thought put into their design. At least the one I fought.
So do you guys think that there's going to be a similar type of issues running into...
the thing is, it feels like Gearbox has learned their lesson some, because again, they did patch Borderlands 2 later on, fixing the legendary drop rate, and pre-sequel showed a acknowledgement of, hey, maybe, this wasn't such a great idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I was actually talking about the MOBA. What the heck was that MOBA, Kev, that we...
Battleborn.
Battleborn. Yeah, Battleborn's Gearbox. You think they're going to try to lean on Borderlands failed mechanics?
It doesn't feel like Borderlands, and I'm saying this, I don't like
Yes.
Battleborn or Borderlands.
They
don't
Battleborn
feel like,
is...
but they don't feel like anything alike.
Battleborn
literally feels like just another MOBA. But it's in first person.
I've seen so much advertisement for Battleborn, and this is the first time that I knew
it's Gearbox. So here, I'll throw this out there. I'll be straight up in the fact that the Doom multiplayer felt more like Borderlands than Battleborn does. And I'll say that mainly because remember I was saying the hit detection. I didn't feel like there was very good hit detection in the Doom multiplayer. I didn't feel like I was shooting anything except for the fact of the floating fucking numbers. And that's one of the things that drove me nuts about Borderlands was the hit detection was kind of, Well,
it is an RPG.
Yeah, but I've had shooter RPGs that have better hit detection as effect. That you actually feel like you're shooting what you're shooting. So, yeah.
I was specifically talking about the numbers over their heads.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No. And like I said, again, Mass Effect is is a good example of how you do a shooter RPG right. And there's been other ones that
I would say that about Fallout also. Fallout 3 in New Vegas in particular, that's another good way to do it right. Yeah. Even though the shooting mechanics are hit or miss.
Well, I mean, Fallout 4 had better shooting mechanics, but it was also less of an RPG, right?
Right, it was more of an action game.
Yeah. But
plus, I don't even know if the shooting mechanics were better. It was just the actual gunplay itself was more satisfying, but it felt like there was less variety.
Isn't that better though? Right?
I don't feel like there was less variety. It felt like Wolfenstein: The New Order a little bit, or even a little bit like Far Cry.
It feels like there was less variety with weapons because of how the modding system was set up. And I understand why they went that direction, because a lot of people like the crafting, like the modding, but it's like, I feel like there was less variety of weapons, and there was less variety of what you could do with weapons, and like the loss of ammo types. Part of that might have been how they did crits. Like, for example, critical builds in New Vegas, it was like a lot of the pistols, maybe, there were several that had small caliber, which were normally that caliber drops off in the late game because, it doesn't do enough damage. But it's in the hardcore mode where ammo is weight, it's not only are these rounds light, they're inexpensive, and with certain weapons, if you had a build that was set up that could crit with them, you could make up for the damage output. It's just
10 millimeters.
I feel like there's nothing like that in Fallout 4.
10 millimeter ammunition is always the best. Everybody knows it.
10 millimeter.
I never had a point in Fallout 4 where I was I can make this crazy different build here that can do this, and it's
I think it's part of the streamlining, right?
Yep.
I feel like the whole adding of the crafting and stuff, it was an attempt. On its surface, it looks like an attempt to add complexity, but I think it was more pandering to the whole crafting thing rather than a legitimate attempt to add complexity to their game, because they cut out so much at the same time. They cut out more than they added in my
ammo types, crafting ammo. Why can't we craft ammo?
Oh, yeah, that was something I loved about when in New Vegas or whatever is you collect all those shell casings and you collect all the scrap metal and you turn that into more ammunition. And yeah, getting rid of that felt. But at least it's a Bethesda game, and you can mod it, right?
Mod
Once they release the damn creation kit.
Well,
that's when the consoles will be able to have mods.
I've been
modded since day one.
It's gonna be interesting because I feel like Bethesda might even look into like adding all these things that were in New Vegas in a later expansion. Like they'll just add it all in at once.
I'd love to see Obsidian just make a whole another Fallout.
Because that's just something that feels like they got like. And honestly, it's so like. Like it's so obvious that it's something you would do in your game because like it worked so well in New Vegas. Like it seems like it was intentionally left out.
I feel but that's the problem Bethesda has.
It wasn't Bethesda Game Studios though that made New Vegas. It was Obsidian.
Still, with how many years have passed, they could have looked back and been like,
I mean,
these features.
It honestly doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't matter that it wasn't Bethesda that made New Vegas because like. It's New Vegas is still, Bethesda, like Obsidian might have made it, but you can still pull from the game. Like you allowed Obsidian to make this game.
But here's the thing: it's not so much what they have available because obviously they own all of the property for it. That's not so much the issue. The issue is the team that worked on it. Because one of the things Bethesda is very well known for, and I give them all the credit for it, is they don't change their teams a whole lot. They keep a relatively small team, and they don't change them a lot. The people that are there stay there. So whenever you have a game that got sourced out,
you can still consult.
Yes, they do.
Consult. I mean,
yes, they could. They don't. Sadly, that's the problem. That's also the downside.
They refuse to look and see what worked, and then just are like,
right, and that's part of it too. That's a big part of it, and I think because of that, Bethesda, when they created Fallout 4, they didn't even really consider New Vegas, like you said. It wasn't meant to be a sequel to New Vegas. It was a direct sequel to Fallout 3.
And I feel like another big issue.
Right, and in that sense, I actually think they made a decent game.
Yeah,
comparing it to Fallout New Vegas,
3, yeah.
Compared to Fallout New Vegas, it depends on how you feel about New Vegas. Like I said, I prefer 3 over New Vegas, so that's probably part of why I liked Fallout 4 so much.
Yeah, well, and here's another thing too, is that as Botu was saying, 100 hours and never really got super excited about the story. Two things: one, the voice protagonist was so damn dry that you really never could get behind him because whatever.
Oh, secondly, he's from before the war.
Secondly,
literally his personality trait.
Secondly, and more importantly, do you really play Bethesda games for the story?
Actually, I did get into the story of Fallout 4.
I'll be honest. The only one I really got into the story in, and that was mainly because I had to read the story rather than actually, things are happening. Very strange dichotomy here, right? Because I had to read, I was more immersed in the story in Morrowind. Arguably, now the quest lines in Elder Scrolls Oblivion and Skyrim had kind of more immersive things, but I never really felt as invested in them. There's also the except for the Dark Brotherhood in Oblivion, was fantastic and was probably one of the best pieces of writing they've ever done.
Yes, absolutely.
It's like honestly, it was such a great story.
I was just thinking about something, and like the voice protagonist and the whole like wheel selection dialogue thing, like somebody in the design team probably legitimately thought that this is how you make a better story. Like this is what makes a good story in a game, in a more straightforward story. Like they looked at New Vegas and they looked at like Mass Effect.
That's where I was going.
Like, yeah,
look at Mass Effect.
That's how to do it. And they don't there's a disconnect. They don't understand why people like Fallout, why people like Oblivion, why people like these games.
I think a big problem, and I'm going to say, I think Bethesda is well aware that they are making big fucking bank off the casual audience. They have turned into the very casual open world RPG. The game that everyone doesn't care about depth. The guys who just are like, I'm just going to play this and walk around and collect stuff. I'm not even trying to insult those guys. Like, I sound like I'm belittling them, not, but it's
they turned into Ubisoft.
They know that audience, and they know those people. They're like, they don't want depth. So I think they're doing it on purpose. I think that's why they don't look at New Vegas. They're like, New Vegas is popular with those guys who actually care about story and depth. It's like, our audience doesn't care about that. Like,
they're after the Skyrim audience.
Okay, Zyphon made a good.
Skyrim audience.
I will throw it out there. Zyphon made a pretty good point. He said, if you're a successful artist, you're going to want to use Are you going to want to use someone else's piece of art to supplement your own? Pride may not be the right answer, but it is a valid one.
I was thinking about that.
Yeah, that is actually spot on. It's
a lot of artists do take inspiration though.
No, inspiration. I'm saying use someone else's piece of art to supplement your own, not
just think about
be inspired by someone else.
I look at, like, I was looking at Kobe Bryant. I do consider him being a professional athlete in some extent an piece of art. Some people may or may not, but the way he copied Michael Jordan did feel like an art form, and he legit took a lot of what Jordan did.
I'll be honest with you, like, a lot of people say that he like copied Michael Jordan. I really don't feel that way. Now I don't want to get too much into a sports debate on a video game podcast. I know he took inspiration from him, but I don't feel like he copied him, if that makes sense.
Going back to the Pride thing, just think about like what happened with Fallout New Vegas. Like, Bethesda's team created Fallout 3, and it was a decent success. It was a success, and blah 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 blah. Then they allowed Obsidian. They allowed Obsidian to take their engine and create a Fallout game. And Obsidian, whatever, knocked it out of the park in terms of storyline and mechanics wise. They did better than the Bethesda team did with that engine in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine as a team, like, how that would affect you. Like,
well, I don't think
Bethesda sees them as having not done them, because you know what? As much as the people who actually care about this depth talk about New Vegas, and as much as we'll talk about how good it is, and after the fact, everyone agrees it's like New Vegas is great. At launch, a lot of people shout on New Vegas because they were like, it's too similar to 3. It launched with a ton of issues because, of course, Bethesda didn't fucking Q&A it and rushed the shit out of the game, and then had the gall to... There was that whole scandal where they withheld, like, the bonus or something to do with the pay for Obsidian based on fucking Metacritic. And they missed a Metacritic score based on the bugs that Bethesda basically rushed them into. Just... I don't know. I feel like Bethesda doesn't acknowledge New Vegas because they're like, New Vegas, but we're so successful. Look at all the games we've sold.
The thing is I think that was also a bit of a kind of a... I would say it was a bit of a time in transition for them. I feel like what they're doing now, they have kind of recentered their foundation on a lot of it. And strangely enough, love it or hate it, I feel like it was ESO that did it. Because I think they had a lot of people in Bethesda game studios that were kind of wanting to get that more MMO flavor and wanted to experiment in the Fallout and whatever those, and they kind of got a bug up their ass about the way that they were developing Fallout and the way that Elder Scrolls was being, and they went over to ZeniMax Online, and they're not there anymore. And strangely enough, now you're seeing it kind of go back to where a little bit more of the theme of how things were with Morrowind and in the development of Oblivion. And it's kind of weird to see that dynamic. Apparently someone's leaving in a hurry from there, which is our cue to go to final thoughts, I guess. So in any case, let's go ahead and give our final thoughts and get things closing up on here. So, Travis, give us your final thoughts.
Enter the Gungeon is amazing. Thank you very much, Joe, for suggesting that to me. It's good. I've had a lot of fun with it. I think the theme is extraordinarily coherent for what the game is. And
I love the boss's named puns.
Yeah, it's so difficult though. Like, it's so hard.
It is. I still haven't gotten past like the third level.
Like, I'm still getting used to the really, really, really slow start but I'm trying out the different characters and the different flavors that they offer, and I've gotten a couple runs where I've gotten like the Marine with a bunch of armor upgrades, where like he regenerates armor and he just gets his helmet and explodes the room, and the table flip at first when I first started the game, I'm like, why is this useful? Like
once you get some of them table arts,
then you get the table arts, and it's just like the table.
I flip a table.
master.
I remember there was one run. It was like table art stun. It's like I flip a table and the fucking entire room of enemies just get like knocked out and like dazed.
There's one that creates blanks. There's one that slows time. There's one that upgrades your damage.
Yeah, it's so funny.
Yes. So Enter the Gungeon, great game. Is it though? Is it really, or are you guys secretly being paid off by developers to shill for their game?
No, don't do it. We're already over 20 minutes. We're gonna mess around and make a 3-hour podcast.
Joe, give your final thoughts.
Dark Souls 3, if you like the Souls games at all, especially if you were someone who was disappointed in Dark Souls 2. Dark Souls 3 is a return to form. It is excellent. Go play it.
That's a pretty good one. Kev, you know what to do.
All right. So, if we know me, I've been around. I'm the only one who's been here on every episode that we've done, Kev the Gamer. Of course, check me out on YouTube. Of course, if you're looking on my channel, check the description for Angelus de Mortiel. We got to get him making more videos because when he's on his videos, he does an excellent job. So he does great for us on the podcast. Make sure you watch him on his channel too, especially if you like Warframe, because he puts out a lot of grind frame. I'm not into grind frame, but that's his game, and he does well with that. I'm enjoying Dark Souls, but I've also realized that I need a second game to play with it because it's stressful. You can't sit there and stress like that all the time.
I can't.
Hey, I'll throw it out there,
can't do
Kev.
it.
I'll throw it out there, Kev. There's this game that you might be interested in checking out. It's called Warframe.
Too much
I
grind.
haven't touched Warframe in like a week.
Good. Down with grind frame.
Oh, yeah,
So
good
no,
times. But in any case, you guys obviously know me, Angelus de Mortiel, the guy that hosts this podcast and probably should make other games or other videos, other games. I'm not going to be making games at any point anytime soon. I don't even have enough time to watch games. But in any case, obviously, same deal as every other week, guys. If you want to check out the podcast here live on cameras or video on demand after the fact on cameras, you can check it out on my channel here or on my channel on Twitch. If you want to check it out with some gameplay footage, and you don't want to see our ugly faces, you'd like to actually have something more interesting to watch, go over to Kev's channel. There will be a link down in the description below, and then there will also be a link to our Discord server down in the chat or down in the description box below for you guys to head up our Discord channel and come chat with us, maybe play some games with us or something. Well, except for Kev, because he's a console peasant.
My console's been dusty, bro.
I know. I'm just teasing. You actually play on PC too.
oh no! I want to say 1440p has been amazing for a month now. I tried to go back to 1080p.
It's hard.
Oh, it hurts my ass, bro. It's hard.
It's hard. Yeah.
But yeah, my console is basically going to be dusty until Uncharted comes out.
Yep. And then at that point he's just gonna sell his consoles and then he won't be a peasant.
My kids play the Xbox One more than I do, and I love the PS4.
He's gonna sell the consoles to his kids. God, you are so fucked up. Selling consoles. Anyway, guys, we're gonna go ahead and sign off here this week, and we will catch you guys all next week on the Pixel Crashers podcast.
Praise